Welcome to Exploring Judaism's podcast, Holiday Bites. We're talking about the high holidays, and I'm grateful to be talking to my friend and my colleague, Rabbi Amy Levin. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Let's begin by introducing yourself to us.
So I am the president of the Rabbinical Assembly of Israel, which means I am the head of the umbrella organization for all the conservative Masorti rabbis in Israel. I'm also a member of the Committee on Jewish Law and Standards, which is the international committee that fields questions about halakha from all over the world. And I'm also on the Vada Kavod. I'm also on the ethics committee for the International Rabbinical Assembly. So I'm wearing lots of kippot right now. I also do congregational consulting.
Starting a month before Rosh Hashanah, all the way through the end of Sukkot, a period of about 50 days, is a time of introspection, the month of Elul and the high holidays. What does this season mean to you as a rabbi, as a friend, as a family member? What does it mean?
So lots of different things. Obviously, the whole family friends thing is very important. I actually live up in the Galilee on Hanaton, where we have a very tight community. So celebrating these days together with our community is always one big embrace. And my son and his family live across the street, so that makes it even better, right? But there are two kind of parallel threads here in this season, because Pesach, Shavuot, and Sukkot is one thread, and then the Elul, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur is kind of a parallel track, and they intersect at different places, but they sort of mean different things. Passover, Shavuot, and Sukkot is our national journey. It's from leaving Egypt to standing at Sinai and receiving the Torah and getting to Sukkot, to that big prolonged journey in the wilderness, which we do as a people. But Elul, Rosh Hashanah, and Yom Kippur is more kind of our personal path through this season. And it gives us the opportunity to not just think on the national level, or who are we as a people, but who am I as a Jewish person, and what's important to me personally, and also what kind of community feels right to me, and how do I find my place in my community.
A major theme of this period is salicha, which is generally translated as forgiveness. How might you translate that word, and share a little bit about what forgiveness means to you?
So salicha is forgiveness. But the thing to remember is that it's multi-directional. It's not just me asking God to forgive me. It's not just me asking people that I might have hurt to have forgiven me. But perhaps I'm a third party to some other sort of reaction of anger or resentment that I have caused, perhaps even unwittingly, to somebody else just by virtue of who I am and what I have said. So self-awareness is a big challenge. And it's hard for us to separate out what's going on in our heads with the ability to understand how we project and what messages we send out to ourselves. And this is the time of year when we are meant to sharpen that tool of self-awareness and figuring out what the messages are that we have sent to, not just to God, but to friends and family and community and anybody else we might encounter. It's complicated.
Tell us about one activity or process you might recommend to someone who wants to engage in this spiritual preparation, this personal process that you described during Elul before Rosh Hashanah.
So I'm very much a proponent of different strokes for different folks. Some people are very attached to some sort of an internal meditation process. Other people feel that they want to connect with other people. This kind of goes back to that self-awareness challenge that I was talking about before, which is you want to sit down and you want to think about what your agenda is now, and what kind of toolkit is going to help you to get through it. But it's hard for me to write a prescription that's good for everybody, because we are so different. Some of us intellectualize, and some of us are motivated by what's in our neshama, and it's just too complicated to say this is the way to do it.
The two big holidays during this period, the ones that most people are coming to synagogue for, are Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. What is or are the essential messages of these holidays to you, and how are they the same, and how are they different?
So they are parentheses around a very intense moment in time. Rosh Hashanah is the beginning of this of this season. It's also the time when the gates of judgment open in that particular metaphor, and it gives us the opportunity to sit down and think in a very deliberate way about what our goals are and what we want our goals to be. Perhaps set some new horizon for ourselves. There's something brilliant about the fact that our tradition weaves that into our yearly calendar, which I love, and which is not the case which with every religious tradition. And it puts the onus on ourselves to take our own priorities seriously and to invest our time in something meaningful. Yom Kippur is as the gates close, right? We are supposed to have done this 10-day march through this process. And the thing that fascinates me about Yom Kippur, and that I think gets lost, is if you think about how we stand as a community and we beat our chests and we say Ashamnu, Bagadnu, we're talking in the plural. We're not talking in the singular. So for all that we are talking about our own personal journeys as Jews, and what we as individuals should be working on in terms of relationships with our friends and our families and our communities and God, we're saying this in the plural. We're not standing there and saying Ashamti Bagadati. So there's something very powerful about the fact that we do this in the context of community, which means to a certain extent, we're also responsible for each other. And we are owning that by standing together as a community for these prayers on Yom Kippur.
During this season, starting with Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, through Sukkot, Shmini Atzeret, Simchat Torah, someone might find themselves spending a lot of time sitting in synagogue. What advice do you have for people who are sitting in services and not connecting, not feeling connected to the moment?
There are a number of different things that could possibly work for you. One, of course, is to look for a book that unpacks some of the themes of this season. And when the words of the Machzor just are not working for you, open up that book instead. Something else to do, which takes a little bit of preparation, a little bit of thinking ahead of time, is if there's a member of your community who you think gets it and who you have a connection with, ask that person if you can sit with them during the services and see whether maybe that person can just give you a little nudge or a little hint or a little whisper here and there during the course of the services, and to help you to kind of see something differently or react differently to something that's going on. And the other thing, of course, is don't tell your rabbi I told you this, but it's okay to get up and walk out and take a break a little bit every once in a while and just breathe some fresh air. Maybe bring that book with you and just open it up in a different place than the sanctuary, and give yourself a chance to get back a different sort of perspective than just the tunnel vision of what's going on in services.
At the end of this season are the holidays of Sukkot, Shmini Atzeret, and Simchat Torah. And the main themes of these holidays is joy and celebration. The tradition calls them Zman Simchatenu, the time of our joy. What does Simcha mean to you, and how might we carry that joy throughout the whole year?
This thread of Passover to Shavuot to Simchat Torah, as I mentioned before, it starts with Passover, right? In the biblical liturgical calendar, the month of Nisan, the month of Passover, is actually the first month, not Tishrei, right? So our journey begins with leaving Egypt. And then we have the tremendous zchut, the tremendous privilege of standing together as a people at Sinai and receiving the Torah. And Sukkot's really fascinating because it's not about a major moment like crossing the Sea of Reeds or receiving the Torah. It's about a journey. It's about a journey that's years and years in the going. But the thing that's moving about that journey is everybody's all together and everybody is protected by God's presence. God is traveling with Israel through this journey, through this middle of nowhere, no signposts, no nothing, right? And so the joy to me is this savoring the fact that we do this journey together with other Jews.
If there was one more thing that you felt like people should know about the season throughout any part of the season, what do you think people should know?
One of the things that has impressed me over the decades that I have been not only a rabbi but an engaged Jew is that, particularly over the course of my lifetime, the options and the alternative pathways through engaging in Judaism has just opened up so completely. When I was a little kid in my Reform temple in the 1950s and 60s, you went to shul and you sat there and you did what the rabbi told you to do and you walked out the door. Now there are chavurot and there are alternative groups and there's music and there's literature and there's just like so many different ways to find your place in the Jewish world that with some intentionality and some determination, you can find the place that's going to work for you.
Well, thank you so much for your time and your wisdom and for being here today.
My privilege and my pleasure.